If green credentials are important to you, you'll probably be delighted to know that the new Renault Captur in Alpine Esprit trim at least has almost 30% recyclable or recycled materials when it comes to the interior. And you also probably realise that the Renault Captur is a lot bigger than it's ever been. If you're in the market to buy one and you're trying to find out the pros and cons of this new Renault, you're in the right place. Welcome to Nobby on Cars. Think of the Captur as a taller Clio, but not necessarily much bigger because the new Clio has also grown in size. This one can come in a mild hybrid. You don't have to plug it in, but it will travel around town and sometimes on motorways in an EV-ish mode. And this one at 141 brake horsepower has quite a bit of power. One other thing the car certainly has is looks. In this Esprit Alpine Blue, it looks really, really smart. These diamond cut alloy wheels, I mean, who could find fault with them? They look really, really sharp. That brings us around to the nose of the car, which has got now what's becoming quickly the Renault EV range of grille, because you know, you don't need as much in some of the EVs or any at all, but this still has a little bit of an air intake here, but you're getting somewhat of the Renault diamonds across the front that change colour depending on what way you're looking at it. When you walk up to the car, these daytime running light signatures give you a bit of a flash to at least acknowledge that you're approaching your own vehicle. Something that's very, very handy is this bad boy. You just keep this in your pocket and the car will open and start and lock with you at all times. You just walk away from it and it does the rest for you. Side on view then, there's a bit of plastic housing on the bottom, roof rails if you need to put a roof box on it. Again, this version does look the best, and the car starts from €29,000, but you've got to spend more than that for this trim version. Obviously you're going to get closer to the mid to high 30s, and for some people, for a Captur, that might be just a little bit too far. Around the back of it, again, it looks very, very smart. The shoulder lines nicely broken up with these daytime running strips on the back that, if you flick the headlights on during the day, really make the car stand out. So it is a striking looking vehicle. I also think a lot of people would agree with the opinion of mine that says Renault are really in an era now where they're making some really good looking cars. They're on a bit of a roll with a lot of the vehicles. They're quite striking looking. First thing you'll notice with the boot is it sits quite high. It's not a huge boot, and if you have the parcel shelf or the luggage load-in part here, you get a flush aspect to the boot. What it also has is a very yellow bulb style light, shopping hook holder here. But then if you need more space, you can drop this part of the lower part of the boot and you have all this extra room here, which is actually probably a good 6 inches extra. So you can really kind of control the boot as to what suits you. And for those of you wondering, the last Captur had that really clever thing with the rear bench to give you extra space in the boot. Is it still there? Well, yes. If there's no one in the back of the car, but you need extra boot space, the whole back bench with this handle pushes forward. And you can give yourself quite an addition of space in the rear. Obviously the leg room is gone then, but there might be days when you have no one in the back, but you just need that extra space in the boot. You don't have to do it the whole way, obviously, as well. So depending on how long the legs are of the people in the back, you can use different options with the boot. It's clever. It doesn't come in many cars. Remember the Volkswagen T-Cross had something similar, but it's a thing that lots of cars could benefit from. In the back itself then, there's still decent knee space, places for your feet, all right head height, and in the back you get 2 USB-C charging ports, no armrest. Again, doesn't really happen in this segment of vehicle. Not all the time, sometimes. Renault's been very clever with the interior of the car. The things you touch most are really high quality. The steering wheel, gear shifter, the screen, which is really useful. Nice portrait position to it. As you look around the car, you'll see flashes of the French flag, the Alpine seat trim in this version of the car at least. One thing that is very strange, have you ever noticed those leggings that girls wear with the kind of gills down the side? They're on the bolsters of the seats, and I can't unsee it now that I've seen it. That said, this stuff, the plastic in the car can be a little bit hard, but by and large, a lot of the plastics are really durable. First of all, get the sense they'll be durable, but they feel okay to the touch, and the seats are comfortable. The seating position of the steering wheel, it's quite a large steering wheel itself, so no matter how far you push that in, it just feels like it's kind of sitting close to you. So if you're someone who likes to sit on top of the steering wheel, you're going to love it. But if you kind of just wanted to back away, it's like, whoa, it is quite large. The Google-based system on this is also brilliant because it just works, and you can obviously use CarPlay and Android and all those things. So I've actually found the whole thing glitch-free, easy to use. Even the Google speech activation thing works really well. As I reverse out of my filming spot today, the 360 all-direction camera makes life very easy for maneuvering this type of car. So while the Captur has definitely grown in size, it's still not a huge oversized SUV, and these driving aids will also help. So at the moment I can hear the faint noise of the engine, but a fairly significant amount of time that will be in EV mode, so it will be driving like an EV. And the transition between EV and petrol isn't always the most seamless, so it can be a little bit jerky at times. There are probably smoother transition vehicles out there. From the safety speed camera setup, you tap this safety perso shortcut button twice and it will bring you into whatever settings you've saved in the past. So while you do have to change that every single journey, it makes life pretty easy because it's just 2 clicks of that button. If you're after a comfortable ride, then I'd suggest you don't go for the Esprit Alpine version, because combination of the suspension and the larger alloy wheels make for a fairly harsh ride. I mean, it's nice if you like sporty driving because it's harder and it'll corner better, but going over ramps and bumps in the road aren't always the most enjoyable. Something else I should add is, even though you turn off this safety perso selection, as soon as you change from one speed zone to another, it will still beep to warn you of that. So you don't seem to be able to fully turn off those EU reg beeps. Maybe some people would say it's not a bad thing for warning that you've changed speed zone, particularly if it's going up. Something to be aware of though. It's in and about as good as you might expect from a Toyota Yaris or a Corolla Cross. People might say this vehicle is more in line with when it comes to fuel efficiency. It is somewhere between sort of 5.5 and 5.7 litres per 100 kilometres. You will slightly better it in a Toyota, and residual wise a Toyota will probably also be better, but there isn't really a Toyota equivalent trim in this car, and there's no doubt it looks better than what Toyota are offering in this segment. Steering is also sharp, so cornering is not a problem. I'd nearly say the steering is at times too light because it's so direct. So you could be inclined to sort of overcorrect things, then realise that you've just steered the car a little bit too much. You'll get used to it over time. Something that's just caught me a couple of times this week though. If you need power for, let's say, joining a motorway, the car has plenty of that. It does get quite loud on acceleration. Get the feeling this car is most at home when it's, on shorter routes, gentle driving, where it can live in EV mode for a large percentage of the time, and then it's very, very happy and very quiet and very refined. If you need a whole lot of power, like up at the 100 kilometers an hour speed zone, it can get a little bit loud and it can hang on to the gear, and then it will settle down and tip back into EV mode and cruise along. For the price, which is on the higher side with this particular trim version, you are treated fairly well. When you look around the things you have, blind spot, radar, cruise control, you get heated seats and a steering wheel. It's fairly well equipped in terms of tech. The sat-nav also included as standard on that Google system. So yes, it is expensive. Yes, you get a lot of spec on the car that sometimes, especially on higher, more premium brands, you're searching for because they don't come as standard. If this is your second car, your empty nester car, your downsizing car, or even your first car, they're all scenarios where the Captur will feel very much at home. Certainly if you're still in the buggy phase of your life with small children, I don't think it's really going to work, because yes, you can extend that rear bench and make it a bit bigger, but then you're losing the space for the little people in the back, and they're going to obviously have to go somewhere. If you did have a smaller baby in the front beside you, where a lot of people will put newborns, don't forget to turn the airbag off, and you've got the rear facing seat and all that stuff, then you could probably make the rear boot work. But I think as long as you need the back seat, or there's 2 kids in the family, whatever, it probably is just a little bit too small. But it's something to drive, it's reasonably fun, it's nippy, and it's got a decent amount of space for the size of the car. I wish the transition between hybrid and petrol was just a bit smoother, and while the car is very refined in lots of ways, the engine isn't always the most refined, and it can get noisy at motorway speeds. There are my thoughts, having driven the car compared to a few weeks ago where it was lashing rain and I just had a few short moments with it. But definitely the Captur is better looking than it's ever been, and is still quite a lot of fun to drive, even if it has climbed in price. If you're in the market for a small to medium-sized SUV, the Captur is pretty good, but like so many cars these days, if you want that fancier trim, it's become quite expensive. And the other thing I'll add is, Renault have made their own segment of car quite convoluted, because you've got the Rafale, the Austral, the Symbioz, and the Captur, and that's not even including the Scenic, the upcoming Renault 5. I'm sure I'm missing something else. They've got a lot of cars, and they might be in the danger of just kind of cannibalizing themselves, because they've got so many different models to choose from these days. If you're in the place where you thought the Captur is still a small enough car, well, that's where you'll be wrong, because this, like so many other cars from Renault, have grown in size. But if there's just 2 of you, maybe 4 of you, it will do the job, and it's got some clever tricks, as I've displayed in this video, to help make this car work for you on whatever needs you need it to work. So thank you very much for coming with me this far on the video. You might consider liking and subscribing to the channel if I've helped you out today, and I'll talk to you on the next one.